Hello. I can hear rumblings.
Hello, hello. Hello, hello. I can. Who's this?
This is Ann Larrabee from Binghamton University.
Hi, Ann. Welcome.
Thank you.
I was hoping to get away without using the clunky headphones as I did last discussion, but these work, so we'll go with that.
I understand.
Right. I thought I'd try again.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
That's if you want to go get some tea.
I know.
Some tea.
I know. I have some water.
We're having a last gasp of when people are getting colds from the weather going. People are getting colds. Weather going from 75 to 35 and again. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe that's it. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
At MIT, right?
That's right.
Okay.
My camera is on my small screen, so guys, so I that way.
I'm going. Are you guys seeing different faces flash up as different speaking? We can do this if the audio picks it up. It will switch to who's speaking, but it can be a little confusing if someone clears their throat or what have you. But we'll work with it.
I can actually see everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, like your like it says A. It says ACRL. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, before I saw your face, I'm not sure what changed.
Yeah, I don't see it. Do you have a camera?
I do. I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on.
Maybe it's...
I'll work on that. I see myself, so I know my camera's working, but that's odd. Let me see if I've got a setting here that I'm missing. Turn it off. Turn it back on.
It's weird because it was working before. I definitely saw you.
Yeah. Sometimes
it says you're no longer presenting.
Well, yeah, I changed myself to present. It would keep me central and see if that changed anything. You don't really need to see me. I was going to try to make everyone in the room the same size box on the screen, but I haven't just go with it. Now it looks like we've got a couple more. Lisa was here, and let's see. There, hello. Brittany's back. Hi, Brittany. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Good. This is Erin. We're discussing audio and video. I can see you and hear you, so you're good. You can hear me, but I don't know that you can see me. I'm working on that.
I see two people.
Okay.
Lisa.
Lisa.
I'm Ann.
And Ann. And then that's it.
Okay. It's a little strange. I can see myself, but you guys can't see me.
You're popping in. I think you might be popping in and out, but I can't. I don't know. In and out, but I can't. I don't know.
I don't know why. I'm on a nice T1 connection, so.
Oh, no, that's Ann. Sorry, that's Ann. No, I can't see you.
Okay. Well, I'll just be a voice from beyond, unless I can. I don't want to go through the whole restarting everything. Signed up. We'll give them a couple of minutes. Signed up. We'll give them a couple of minutes.
The woman behind the digital curtain.
That's right. I don't have all the special effects, though.
Whoa.
Let's see if Lisa pops back in. She was here for a moment. Who else are we waiting on? Oh, Rebecca was one who came in and then hasn't come back. So we'll see.
Where is everyone from?
I'm at MIT.
MIT.
I'm from.
Okay. I'm from Binghamton University in New York.
And I'm here at the University of Denver. This is Erin. I was going to go around Denver. This is Erin. I was going to go around. I just wanted to give people a couple more minutes. Our titles. I just wanted to give people a couple more minutes to get. Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Katie's outside. I hear birds.
It's true. I'll probably mute my mic.
That's okay. It's a nice thing. I've got snow here in Colorado. I like to hear the birds.
Oh no.
Yeah. It's a beautiful day. I should just join you. I see you're on the south. You're on the south at the south entrance, aren't you?
I am a tree. I am. I'm under the one tree.
All right. Conversation. Might have a couple of more people pop in and join us. I'm the voice behind the curtain, apparently. Although I can see myself, and I'm Erin Meyer. I'm the student outreach librarian and coordinator of the Research Center at the University of Denver's. And then, if we could all go around and introduce ourselves. I'm the only person whose job is student outreach. Librarians are liaisons to faculty. I also chair the Public Relations Committee. And we have a program and doing a lot, especially with collaborating with partners across campus. And we feel effective, but like many, we are struggling to assess that. I get some good ideas here today myself. Anne, do you mind going next?
I am at Binghamton University. My position is I'm a subject librarian for anthropology, social work, human development, and African for anthropology, social work, human development, instruction committee, and that involves a lot of different outreach activities. So I'm looking forward to hearing ideas, and I am currently serving as community engagement fellow this semester. So I'm really looking for engagement ideas.
Brittany?
Sure. My name is Brittany Thomas. I am the Learning Commons Coordinator at the University of Iowa. I work quite closely with Katie, who will introduce herself soon. We do a lot of programming and planning for events and things like that, and our undergraduate students. And there's only that, so it's really hard to actually squeeze in assessment. I find I usually find I get to an event, and how we can plan that stuff in the planning process and to kind of make sure it doesn't get left out is really a priority.
Katie? I'm just going down the line on my screen.
Hey there. I also dropped the call for a second, so
Okay.
I'll do a quick introduction and then maybe boogie inside so I can keep a stronger internet connection. So my name's Katie Hassman, and as Brittany said, we work closely together. And I just started here at the University of Iowa. As one of 2 undergraduate engagement librarians, and that's what I'm tasked with doing. And like Brittany said, there's few of us doing this type of outreach and engagement, and it's hard to do proper assessment of all of our events with such a. And yeah, so I'm just start a conversation about it.
Lisa?
Ouch. But I'll try.
Thank you.
I'm linguistics outreach, but I have two halves of my job. So my linguistics liaison job is part of a department of liaisons, and my assessment job is. But I have been actively involved in our work to assess the liaison. In one of the most recent activities we did in that, we did an assessment of our outreach to new faculty. So I can talk about that a little if anybody wants to know. I'm also working with a higher level library administrative group trying to find a way to, it's the services directorate, so it's like public services equivalent, and we're trying to come up with big assessment metrics that tell us about how well we're doing in certain areas. So some of the things that you've talked about, such as events and how do you assess events, we've started to talk about what it is that we want to get out of it. Like, we haven't talked about the tools yet, but we've talked about some measures that we might be interested in looking at. So that's me.
Great, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, librarian for outreach and academic collaboration is my title. So I'm in charge of applications, that kind of stuff for the library. We do not have an assessment person. We have been doing more and more events, and we have kind of a regular survey tool we use at our events all across campus and in the library, and we're counting really well, like the number of butts we get in a seat or the number of faculty that show up. But I, want about our collaborations, or, with the exhibits, how many classes we get in, how many, students are engaging with things. Some of these things are harder to count with our infrastructure, but I'm for ideas for how to better assess the whole outreach program.
Great, great. Okay, well, this is a semi-formal, I guess, discussion. I do have set questions, but at any point, please feel free in a direction that's beneficial. We can certainly go with that. But to start things off, what information do you gather to assess your outreach efforts? Do you gather number of people, learning outcomes, etc.? Anybody want to jump in on that?
I think number of people is pretty universal. I don't know about anyone else, but we collect number of people per instruction session when I've done sessions.
We were trying to get more, so we had to guide them through working with faculty. So not only we wanted 100%, so we did that, but we did a couple other things where we asked them to count how many return emails they got. In other words, how many replies they got in the first place, or actual meetings from their first set of outreach. And then if they got follow-up responses, so that we could see if there was extended activity that was caused by the initial outreach. And then we also sent out a survey a little bit later from the head of the department, asking whether these people knew who we could try to see if we had actually made an impact.
Great.
We do count when we get people to show up. When we get people to show up to our events, the number of people who are there. And also try to get some feedback from things. Although the response rate for that is really low. Something that I've been doing with some of the events and things that we've been hosting in the Learning Commons that are kind of not a specific event, but like an exhibit. We have a ton of whiteboards around, so I've been moving the whiteboards over to where the exhibit is and letting people provide feedback. Surprisingly, I don't know if it's because it's anonymous and it's just easy, gotten some good feedback on some of the things that we've tried.
Denver, we also count, bodies in seats, butcher block paper, like your whiteboard idea, moving things around the building and asking people to give point of feedback. But it's, I would say it's uneven across exhibits. It's not been standardized.
Has anyone done anything that tries to do any kind of comparison. We called it a ratio, something that figures out how much work is done before the event and how that pans out against the people who attended or thing.
From
I
my
have that concern more with exhibits than I do because they take so much time. I mean,
Yeah.
events, I think, but for exhibits, we spend sometimes, the amount of time that it takes to exhibit compared to the impact. It's sometimes that's something I would like to measure. Like,
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
when there's attendance, I know that the dorm outreach program, we started that program with going to RAs and asking them to plan it for us, and we were the ones purchasing the pizza and putting a lot more time and effort. And then now we just go to the RA training at the beginning of the semester and make an announcement, and they come to us and they buy the pizza, and it's created a lot more sustainability for the program, and we usually have between 8 to 15, considering we put a lot of planning into it to do a lot more of us going to find the people. It was only like sometimes no one showed up because they weren't invested. So if there was buy-in, it's just a matter of finding those contacts, I think, is the hard part.
Yeah, so I'll say here at UCS Survey Forum that we have at all of our events, and that also asks for, would you like to stay in touch with the library capture for e-newsletter. So that's kind of new because we only launched an e-newsletter in January, but that's something else I haven't really been counting it, but it's very easy to count because we're using, Emma, an email marketing tool, so we can track things like we ask for affiliation on that, like if it's a student, faculty, community member, alum too, so we can kind of track who is signing up for our e-newsletter. So that's been good, and yeah, we use the same survey tool at all of our events. It's just a paper one. And then we have a comment book at our exhibits. Like you said, we have kind of this it's just a book. And so we're capturing quotes that we use and things, in marketing materials, but we can't actually capture, unlike a museum.
Have started in the last year to do more consistent. I said that it's iffy across exhibits, but across exhibit-related events and other events. So we have one form for my student outreach events, and one for author or artist talks, related events, so author or artist talks related to our exhibits. And in that, we're both trying to get at the impact of the marketing that we're doing. And again, like you've mentioned, we invest a lot of time in some areas, and maybe it's not paying off to write blog posts about each event, but it is to get it into departmental newsletters. And then we're trying to also assess for exhibits what the impact is on people's lives and what they might have learned. We're fortunate to have a really talented graduate student in museum studies working with us, and she's very cognizant of both the need to make an impact and the need to assess what she's doing. So that's been great.
Can I follow up on that a bit? When you say that the graduate student you have is assessing impact, is it kind of like directly after the event, or is it 3 months after the event, or?
Good point. It is asking people who are attending an exhibit-related event if they have views. So the time scale varies depending. They're going to be responding to the event that they're present at. And then be an exhibit that's related to that. But because we just exhibits for 2 years in our new building, we said, and do you think that they had any exhibits, and do you think that they had any impact on you? I don't have it in me to tell you the wording, but I could pull it up. So yeah, that's a good point. Is impact felt immediately, or is it felt later when that person incorporates something into an assignment because they learned about resources through, an exhibit at the library?
Yeah, I just think that kind of long-term impact, right, to show that we're having that, it's just really difficult to figure out channels of getting to that information. Right. I mean, that's a challenge of any researcher, but I think especially with what we do as librarians in these exhibits and programming initiatives, it's like where would we look for it? Do we want to look at student retention? Do we want to look at student success grades? And then, how do we get to the table to talk to other campus units that are doing that data collection? I know we've started to do a bit of it, and Brittany, maybe you can talk a bit about the CRU survey, but we've had some questions put in the organization on campus that does a campus-wide survey of all incoming freshmen, and it's hard to take it, and we're able to put in an institution-specific question in there about our services broadly.
Well, that leads in a little bit to one of the questions that I had for today, which is the tracking and the storage of data. I've heard a couple of us mention paper surveys at events. Are anybody using clickers? We even talked about clickers on the wall. You can get feedback throughout an event, or any other kinds of technologies or tools being used to collect data.
I would say for us, we primarily just use Qualtrics and online systems. It's not really even at the point of need. I used to print out actual surveys to give to people, and I didn't really get that many responses. And I don't get that many more using Qualtrics, which is a university survey form. But also the CRU survey that Katie survey, and that was just to assess really the questions that we got in there, assess how students felt about the space, the learning. And it had pretty good feedback, about 20%, but that requires some, relationship building and buy-in on the part of, the assessment coordinator for the things that they could be assessing. So it's kind of, they're going to do that survey again in 2016, and I would love to get in.
The exhibits. What kind of exhibits are people? What kind of exhibits are people? More instructional or theme related? I know we do exhibits in the library. I'm on the committee, and we've done one for National Women's Day and Banned Books Week and a few others. But I'm curious what kind of exhibits you're.
Yeah, I can talk about that. We're doing exhibits either highlighting or highlighting partnerships and work that's being created on campus. So everything from we do a professor who took pictures of juveniles in the justice system. We've displayed, there's a campus-wide art of science competition where we agreed to print the items, even though the competition's happening elsewhere on campus. We put infrastructure into being able to display those in the library as exhibits. So we're doing, themed things. To spend the time, whether it's subject librarians, faculty, or grad students, it's a lot of, like I said, it's a lot of work. I have someone on the project management side of things. I have an events and exhibitions librarian, but to actually find curators that will spend time on doing thematic things is a really big challenge.
Yeah, we have a whole committee, and one person leaves it up is really talented with instructional graphics, so she kind of designs all the signs and gets the whole committee to write up the little blurbs.
Oh wow, the committee does. I'm actually in the process of disbanding our internal exhibitions committee and looking to create more of a campus-wide programming advisory committee. People on the ground that put the exhibits together, but I think we are in need of going a little broader to get the ideas from campus, as well as the graduate students and the faculty and whatever that actually want to do the exhibits. Interesting to see how that goes, to try to put together a campus-wide programming advisory committee.
Definitely. I think that's a really interesting way to get more involvement from outside the library.
Made me think that I sympathize with you. I sympathize with you, Rebecca, when you said the time invested as the are. So I don't very often curate an exhibit, but when I have, it's extremely time consuming. I think one of the benefits we have found, and one way to assess the benefit, is that the co-curated exhibit We've commissioned art pieces from our digital media arts program. We've brought in student organizations and student organizations and supported different library goals and initiatives through exhibits, and being able to talk about them even after they're gone and have them, we document them and archive them as best we can, and maybe make a video tour in addition to saving the pieces of work that we can save. But that gives us more mileage, I think, than necessarily foot traffic. So I don't know how to tell that story, but I do know that, in showing, for example, the library had built a front end for a professor to use as a supplement to her new book, about the history of cartography, for these digital maps that she was using in her research in our archive, in our repository. And then, so we helped her create her scholarly work, and then we made an exhibit about it. We've been talking about that for 2 years. It's been in our alumni newsletter, or alumni magazine, and newsletters and things like that. And it's an example that makes sense when we tell faculty, here's how you can work with special collections, and here's how you can work with, our digital team to create front ends or other ship. So it's not exactly the same as saying, oh, we had 150 people come to the library simply to look at this beautiful exhibit, but it is an impact that we felt from this program.
One of the things, you guys haven't talked about it, but it was something that we talked about that we thought might be useful, so I'm bouncing it off you to think if you think it would be ever valuable, especially in these co-curated, you said exhibits, but I'm thinking, is there a way that you could do what we called these quality debriefs? Some activity with the planners, where you could really get a sense of what was the value that the libraries brought and what might be better the next time. That was something we were talking about doing in our future.
Yeah. We do that. I mean, it's very, we have a wiki meeting with all of the partners, but it ends up going more to the logistics side, oh, next time we do something like this, we need to, and some of that, we need to give better guidelines to co-curators about what they can expect, so that it doesn't impact staff resources in the same way, so that could have a good impact. But it's harder to, I think, in that you said quality.
Right.
Yeah,
Beyond the logistics, right? Thinking about, like, I just keep thinking about value added. We keep talking about if we're creating spaces where people are supposed to learn, how can we find out if that's what's happening? Or if that's a space where they're supposed to, if that's what's happening, or if find out if that's what's happening. So that was it.
Right. And what I find the challenge is, with events and exhibits, I would like to see us doing more of closing that loop of faculty and students come to the library to do research. We provide service, whether we provide collections, we provide service, whether we provide collections, we provide service. Like, I would like to graduate research digital poster sessions, or
right.
I don't know, faculty talks about how they use the collections and how that, so it closes more of that. So it closes more of that learning and research loop about the library's role in those activities.
Maybe Katie could talk a little bit more about this. We've talked about, for finals week, putting up a floor plan of, at the very least, the first floor with the Learning Commons on one of our monitors in the Learning Commons, and just leaving it up for a while and letting students draw on it with her, kind of, have some questions that are, prompt, the spaces prompt, the spaces that they find most valuable. That question that I think Lisa asked about, are students learning, are they collaborating, is so extremely difficult to answer, because, they could be doing both things so simultaneously or so fluidly that it's like, 1 minute you look at them and they're on Facebook, and then literally the next minute they're writing a paper. So we thought, well, maybe at least if we could see what the value of the spaces that we're providing. So we're going to try to map, I think, hopefully, if we can.
Yeah, the idea is based off of collaborative mapping exercises, right, from ethnographic research traditions. And so, yeah, the idea is to not just have individual students be drawing on the map, it's about having it be different colored markers every day so that students can start to see changes, if there are, in fact, trends or changes. So that way they can kind of reflect on what their peers are doing. And yeah, it is, I guess, a form of assessing the space usage. Where did you come from before you came in the doors as well? Because I think that would be interesting too, to see kind of how we fit in the larger trajectory of the day. Because, you know, like I said, I'm trying to wrap my head around assessing kind of the larger arc of student life and how we fit into it and impact not just the time that they're in the space, not just the time they're at our programming, but in the future. And so something we're going to try out. We'll see how it works.
We were really lucky because our university center, where do you spend your they answered, so they shared. We weren't the ones that had asked the question, but we get a lot of mileage out of that now in our, you know, kind of annual reporting and kind of just our talking head university librarian going out there. And we did, for the first time last year, do quote-unquote exit survey. I mean, the library did a survey of graduating seniors, like it was like 2 or 3 questions, and it was basically just like, what value did the library play in your career? And we got a pretty good response rate, I'd like to keep honing that. I mean, our university librarian wants to get in on kind of more the exit survey that goes on, you know, that comes out of academic affairs or whatever, and student affairs on campus, but she thought if the library questions into the campus-wide one.
What channels do you have to go through? Do you just go through the Office of Educational Research? And then we're told, you know, students are already surveyed out. We have to be really cautious about, like, how.
Yeah. That problem, I mean, because I work directly for the university librarian, some of that's a little bit easier, I guess, because I can get her to ask. We were able to go through the Office of Institutional Research for that.
Yeah,
You mentioned this already. This information out to and telling your story, and I know that some of the methods and means that I've heard you mention and some that we're using here are very qualitative. So how do you go about reporting that out, and to whom are you? We're fortunate, I think, in that we have a new chancellor who it's kind of shaken up the deans, because this new chancellor is more qualitative than our previous chancellor, and has directly asked us to tell her. And I'm excited about that, because what I do on a daily basis lends itself very well to that type of assessment. So how do you tell your stories, and to whom do you tell them?
Newsletters. We have you can write about stories. But in the past, other than publishing, it's been or poster sessions, presentation sessions at conferences has been the primary way. And we also have brown bag lectures, and that goes out to the library, because so much internally we don't even know what each other are doing. So I think that's been really helpful. But I think just only recently we've discussed extending that to the larger population and inviting external members as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned, in many ways, and qualitative story as a means to tell a story. I think
Right.
we've been able to. We haven't necessarily filtered just outreach up to the level of the library as much as I would like, but I know that that when we have effectively communicated to our dean what we're doing and given her quotes and samples and images and you know, student impact stories, she then uses those in her communication. goes out and communicates across campus. So.
Always wanted to do. I was just talking about it again today, but I haven't figured out a tool. Is that I've always wanted like a, I don't know, a bucket, something where we could keep all our stories, so that if I had a tool that wouldn't become this extra load on people, because it would be, you know, they'd have to write a story. It just seems like that maybe qualitative data isn't the only answer, you know, it's not the only thing you want to provide, but stories always frame all the data that you do provide when you provide data. And, you know, we have people like the fundraising, who, the development officer who wants stories to bring to the alumni and the other donors. And, you know, we have the collections person who wants comments from users about what's lacking in the collections. There's all kinds of places where those stories are important. But if you don't have them at hand, and doing a study that includes gathering stories is usually a lot of work. Stories other ways too.
I love that. I love that idea of having a database or repository of stock photography or something. Like we're always looking for the photo of the students interacting in the this space, interacting in the this space. I guess in a way I'm lucky. I mean, I'm in charge of communications and publications as well, so I'm in charge of the annual report. And it's, you know, one page of mostly stories, you know, mostly little kind of news items with quotes and stuff like that. I was also just able to hire a writer, so I have a full-time publications coordinator and writer and social media coordinator. We have a student writing intern working for us right now doing like a Humans of UCSB Library campaign on social media, where she's literally like going around the library and taking a picture, of a student in the library, and we're kind of putting that out just on Facebook and Twitter.
Is that going okay? I thought about that as well, because I see so many interesting things, and I just go through the library thinking, I wish I had my camera right now. And I'm sure that could be added to some of our social media, but is there a concern about like having them sign waivers, or like what kinds of things have you had activity?
We do have those group shots, and so we use it, but I think the big thing is that it's a student doing it. I mean, we've wanted to do it before. It's like students don't want to talk to me or my writer or someone walking up to them, but it's really different when it's up here and they on Facebook and retweets on, you know, that stuff, because it's like, oh, that's my friend, than, you know, on anything else.
Did you hire this student? I'm really intrigued by this idea, because the idea of the story bucket, I thought immediately little bits and maybe making a contest for staff to wander around and capture these stories. So you have a student that you've hired, and what?
She's getting course. They do. It's called. It's a minor in writing and civic engagement. So it's almost like they were working for nonprofit organizations. That's what she's studying. Taking an internship credit for working for us 10 hours a week, and we are not paying.
For students who learn the Learning Commons, really. University doesn't really have a policy that we can fall back on, or any official forms that we can use for students to find in public spaces. It's just you ask and you get their verbal permission, and do it. You know, we have a lot of university communications people coming in and do promotional videos using the Learning Commons as a background, and that's kind of their standard.
I'm also wondering about the difference between, or do you distinguish between promotional efforts, and if so, do you have different assessments for those? Or
could you repeat the first part of the question?
Sorry. Yeah, do you distinguish between promotional and instructional outreach efforts? And if so, how do your assessments differ? Here at DU, we have made our assessment tool that we use in workshops, be they course-based or our workshop series that's anyone. and we overlap that with some questions we ask in our research center, which is where we do 1-hour reference appointments. So we've tried to align those, but we haven't actually tried to align the questions that we're asking for example, on our event surveys.
Yeah, it doesn't seem. I would have to think about whether you care about them. Like, is it to be able to figure out whether it has the same need for the same question.
Is anyone using social media?
We have a social media. We have a a Facebook tweet feed and a Twitter feed, but we haven't gotten feedback even when we've tried, because I actually have used it. I can't remember what I tried to ask for some kind of input, and people don't respond. They respond to certain kinds of things, but those were not some of the things they responded to.
What did they respond?
Respond to things that are, I don't know, more news-like. Like if something is a newsworthy event, they might comment on it. I'm not part of our social media group, so I haven't seen recently, but they talked about events on seem to be related to when MIT makes the news and the libraries has some sort of thing about it. Like one of our, this was probably a year and a half ago or maybe a little bit longer, we posted something that was in our, it was in our archives. It was like a picture of some test, and it got hits, and so people commented on that. It was more about the newsiness of it.
Brittany, do you guys use social media to assess, or are you?
In the back of my mind, in the back of my mind, okay, social media users, so I don't feel like we quite a bit recently. Yik Yak, and the debating on the merits. People, I mean, if you kind of pay attention to Yik Yak, if you're doing an event in the Learning Commons, you can definitely see some responses. Although, because the nature is anonymous, most of it's negative and not very nice. So, I don't know how accurate it would be because I don't know. As an outreach tool, I think they're doing a very good job, but I wonder like how you can make that experience.
I have to look this one up. I never heard of it.
I don't know. You might know. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting. But it's all anonymous. So there's some, people definitely do use it a lot, especially undergrad students, but sometimes not in a very positive way.
Yeah.
With Brittany's, what were you just anonymous? Was that?
Oh, this new
Yik Yak?
popped up in the past few months called Yik Yak.
Oh yeah, we use it. We respond.
So how do you do that? What is it? Like, do you log in and then just watch what's being said around you, or?
We haven't invested a lot of time in it, but it's more around something like we have an event on campus called the Undie Run at the end of every quarter, and there's a big push from our university librarian for them not to come into the library because there's been this police for years to try to dissuade people from coming to the library. But it's kind of, so by that came around, people were like, "Where is the Undie Run this year?" And we were like, "It's over," because we had been working to redirect it to but also that I have a full-time person whose job is like writer, social media coordinator, so she can do some of that social media thing, which just takes a lot of time. It takes time for her to like retweet things and respond to things, and it's funny. I know people don't realize that it is a time-consuming thing, and if you're after is engagement, engagement means you and retweet and favorite and follow everyone else on campus and retweet. Someone needs to pay attention to it.
Takes a lot of time.
I've actually had people, we have a news blog, so that's one of our outreaches, and people have been working on it for a couple of years, and we have a DSpace repository where we put in a lot of MIT faculty research. So there's our scholarly research, our scholarly publishing librarian. She puts a blog post probably once every 3 weeks up, and she was asking to understand your impact from that kind of thing. She puts so it's on our news posts, and there's an RSS feed if people want a way to assess the impact of all these social media tools, because you know who's using them. It's not necessarily your own community, and so how do you figure out, I don't know, what's of value? We had a focus group last year. We were actually talking about the homepage, and we had one that was just students, so it was grads and undergrads. When somebody said something about the RSS feeds, they actually giggled, like, I can't believe how old you are that you're using RSS feeds. It was the saddest thing. We're like, okay, apparently that's not in. And then they said, well, why would you have a Facebook page? You know, why would we ever follow you on Facebook? And it was just a focus group, so it was only those 10 or 12 students. But it really said to us, okay, well, what does this mean? Are we impacting somebody connect to us? Not that we don't have people who have subscribed, but you know, we can't tell if they're MIT or not.
May I ask what they're using instead of RSS feeds?
They didn't talk about it, so I think it's a good question to pursue that direction. It was just their reaction, so we went in a different, you know, that's not what we were trying to figure out, but it's a good question, actually. I feel like now I should know.
And Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We actually decided to spend this for focusing our Facebook on trying to increase parent engagement. So we looked at kind of, you know, the demographics of who uses what social media tool, and the Facebook is the audience for us in terms of our development side of things, because they are constantly in touch with their students. The library has a major impact on students' everyday lives. So launching that Humans of UCSB library thing is actually to get to parents. But with that's actually, at least for this quarter, we're about to fall, so we're in this kind of countdown mode where we're trying to build a lot of excitement and do a lot of last minute fundraising for furnishings and technology period to really we're going to be doing videos in the construction space with students in hard hats talking about group study rooms and our new learning commons and what that's all going to mean to
I have another question about your, because this is my takeaway for today, the humans of, because I think that would really fit a lot of our goals as well. Is the student acting sort of as a journalist and just a documentarian of what's going on, or are you sitting them out with, we would like to get this message across? Can you find a story that will help us tell that to our audience?
I mean, we've sat down with her a lot and talked. We've had meetings with the Office of Public Affairs and Communications on campus. We've had meetings with, we've sat down a lot and talked with her about the library. But, yeah, I'm not the one directly overseeing her, actually. My writer is, so I don't know. We've had, she's only done, I don't know exactly how much direction our writer ended up giving her.
Is it publicly available? Can you send a link?
Yeah.
Yeah, people are posting links on the chat, which is great. Thank you.
Oh, good. I don't see that.
Well, have any of you used any of your various assessments to improve future outreach? And could you talk about maybe some failures or successes, and how you learned about them?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I guess for us, just kind of making are and kind of making things, and this is just kind of came up to informal assessment, kind of just thinking after the fact. We kind of realized that a lot of times we want to kind of get students engaged, so we just reach out to them and connect them in any way. A lot of times very short events, you know, simple, easy things. Now, 30-minute workshops are even too long. You know, we do a lot of pop-up libraries for stuff, and we take them places where we know that they would be at, and that seems to work.
So if I'm also having a little trouble with your audio, but if I understood you correctly, you're saying that it can be a low investment impact outreach effort if you take it to where the students are.
Yeah, and it really needs to be, for us, it needs to be low investment on their part.
Yeah, okay.
Instructionally, she would have learned, and I just have them write it on for me to type up, and I send it to a professor, but it gives me a lot of knowledge in how to improve instructional, you know, agenda for the next time. And I know that's not outreach per se, but I think that that's still a really good assessing what students need.
We use the same minute paper. Those are the two questions that we basically ask in instruction and also in our longer reference consultations.
Do you do it electronically, or just you have them write it out?
For the consultations, we're already at a workstation, so we just bring up the survey at the end and say, here, we need you to do this, and so we have a very high response rate. For the instruction sessions, we do it on paper, and then we have a work award student who is doing massive amounts of data entry as we speak, because we're integrated into the writing heavily in the spring, so that's pretty much what he's doing. And we also... Oh.
Do you answer those questions for them?
Say again?
Do you answer those questions for them, like when they say, what's one thing you would have liked to learn?
We try to look at, basically, we've seen that students, well, sometimes they want more than we just have time for. I think the thing that we don't have time for that we're going to make time for is more evaluation of sources. So we spend a lot of time on search and on search construction and on understanding where all of our different tools reside and how to get to them, but getting into that deeper evaluation of sources is something that we have. We're trying to map. We had been mapping those open-ended to ACRL standards, and we're finding that remapping to the new framework draft, everything falls into one of the, areas. It's one of the, areas. It's everything search. Well, it doesn't tell us very much, so it's going to be hard.
The most improvements as I monitor the suggestion box and then suggestions that come in via our website. And what I started to do was create a coding system for the questions that come in. So I have a student that enters them into a spreadsheet and assigns them a code, like this is something about hours, this is something about collections, this is something about customer service or whatever, and then I then go through that spreadsheet and I forward the suggestions to the appropriate department or whatever to see if they can follow up and do something about it, but then also present to them minimally once a year. I'm in the process of doing it right now, looking at the whole past year, and where the main kind of, because they're mostly complaints, right? Where the main complaints were, and then we try to respond if it's something a lot of it's anonymous, and a lot of it's building up stuff, like the toilet on the whatever floor doesn't work, or can't you guys do this, or sometimes it is something where it's they just don't know that we do not reply, but we try to be really responsive to those when we can.
Okay.
I'd like to actually build a database for it as to doing it in Excel, but
That's what I was just thinking. That's the same
with
thing as I have a bucket.
menu.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some way.
that would be great.
And it probably wouldn't be that, FileMaker wouldn't be that
Right.
hard.
When we had bookmarking research week, we had students either draw or write out what they like about the libraries, and then we the library.
We did when we opened, prior and then upon the opening of the newly renovated building, on the building, or post-it notes on a whiteboard, and we got a lot of good feedback, and we got a lot of good feedback right away. So immediately on opening, we found, simple tweaks like we have a cafe, but it isn't open 24 hours, and the library is. So you need 24 hours, and the library is. So you need a microwave, hot water source for tea. You need a better selection in the vending machines, and little things like that seem to make a really big difference to students. And I could spin them in microwave. She's like, here, let's just put it out and see if anybody uses it. And I could go around to student organizations and student government and say, hey, look, we respond. When you have these requests, we respond quickly. So
well, I think that's what we just got a new dean, but our former dean was really afraid of us asking for too much student feedback because he was afraid of the demands would be unfulfillable. So I remember I wanted to form like a student advising against it because he's just like, you're gonna get responses and it's just that you won't be able to fill, and it's just
right.
Yeah, I ran.
Go ahead.
At first, I was just getting feedback, and they were like, we want this, we want this, we want hours, we want, and then I realized, like, I need to set this up a little differently, so we had half of every the library would come talk about, like, what it means to be the, to oversee the circ desk, or what it means to be the one in charge. They started to understand some of the back-end decisions that go in, and also, like, if you want to add hours, do you add in the evening? Do you really know that what you want is what all other students want? What are there's impacts on union issues with staff workers, and they just started to understand. But I think what's really interesting about getting feedback, and thankfully my not afraid of feedback, is I'm always surprised that people are willing to help come up with resources. Like if they want in a graduate study lounge in the library, they might be able to help come up with the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or same thing with undergrads, or they might be willing to like write the letter to the head of the college or university and say like, this is really important to us, and we went and we asked all our other students like what they wanted. So,
well, I want to be cognizant of our time. We're getting to the top of the hour. Near the top of the hour. I personally have 2 pages of notes of great ideas and things to follow up on. So I really appreciate everyone's active participation, and even with laryngitis.
Yes.
Do we have each other, or?
I have not been asked to send that out, but if you're going to be, speaking of assessment, sending you a feedback of ACRL ULS, we'll be meeting soon to debrief on this experience of doing these discussions and what we learned. I tell my graduate students when I ask them for feedback on me as a supervisor, be kind, but be helpful. Be helpful. Tell us what worked and what didn't, and we appreciate your time on that as well. If there are any last comments, go for it. But otherwise, this broadcast, we use the Google Hangout, automatically creates a broadcast, so those will be posted as well, and you'll have information about that. So thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it, and thanks for all the great tips and tricks. Bye.